So, because there are so many people who are not here, I thought instead of transcribing this, which was going to take me a long time, I don't know if it's catching me, I would just tape myself. Isn't that so smart? And I'll put it on our YouTube channel. And so I'm going to look over here occasionally. There, I got to be right about here. That's perfect. And then folks who aren't here can just can look at it, because normally we do this in the first week, but it didn't work out that way this time. So this is the week we're doing it, but a lot of people have lab meetings or whatever going on. So welcome. How are you? Okay. So you know me, I'm Lisa, and so I'm here by myself tonight, but to tell you about a bunch of resources and things mainly to answer your questions. So I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm just going to open it up because I know you have lots of questions. And then I'm going to ask the folks who aren't in arts and sciences to ask all their questions first and then leave, because I think the folks in arts and sciences might still have questions about the HEC and how that works, and Honors 101 and all that kind of thing. So we'll do it that way. So if you're in arts and sciences and you have loads of questions about the HEC, the Honors Enrichment Contract, and Honors 101, hold your questions until the other folks leave, because it'll just be tedious for them. And I know there are lots of questions from arts and sciences. So welcome to junior year. I think of junior year as being like, I think of you all as being sort of like middle children. Like we spend a lot of resources on the first years, right? And we sort of expend a lot of thought and energy on our seniors, sort of getting them done with what they're doing and making sure they feel really well supported, and we completely ignore you. But we don't. We're thinking about you, we're in your corner, but you sort of get lost. I think sometimes juniors feel like they just sort of get lost in the shuffle. Like, you know, we're here, remember us, we're in junior year. So this is me answering all your questions, or taking you through some of the expectations of junior year, because things do change in junior year, and then just giving you lots of opportunity to ask questions, but also to invite you to come by anytime, you know, where we are, and to keep coming by and chatting with us anytime you have questions. You'll feel like we've abandoned you a little bit, and we haven't, but we have sort of cut the umbilical cord for junior year, because this is the time for you really to sort of find your way in your majors and in your departments and in your work. And so you're not probably living in the building. Maybe a few of you are, but most of you are probably not living in the building. If you were before, bless you. And you're just not seeing us all the time. And so it feels like, you know, what are we supposed to be doing? Well, that's part of what I want to chat with you about, just sort of what the expectations are. So let me just start by calling up the Honors College, by calling up the website, because there's a lot of good stuff on the Honors College website. Oh, look at that's even right there. All right, so you know how to find stuff on here. Here's Honors College website, menu. Go to junior, senior curriculum. There's a lot of information here. So it starts by sort of telling you what I just said, which is that you're going to spend most of your time in your home department or in your home college, and importantly, that your junior year requirements will vary a little bit from college to college, because each college now is responsible for deciding what you need to get ready, what sorts of things you need to be ready to write an undergraduate thesis. So if you're in SEMS and you're like, we don't have anything like what you have in arts and sciences, that's right, you probably don't, because the colleges are deciding what they think your junior year requirements are. So that's a sort of weird, we're in the Honors College is in this sort of weird limbo zone of, we need you to complete your junior year requirements. That's a requirement of being in the Honors College. But we don't have a lot of jurisdiction over what those requirements are, other than, I mean, we meet with, we've met extensively with the folks in the colleges, and we know what you're doing, and we, you know, sort of approve of it for what it's worth. But it's not in our wheelhouse anymore. It's not like, you can't call me up and say, what am I supposed to do in junior year, and can you talk me through this, and I'll say, actually, you need to see the people in your college about that. I can tell you, the website can tell you what the requirements are. But the folks who can do your advising now, for the most part, are going to be in your college. There are Honors College liaisons in each college, and so actually, if you look on this, so this is a great thing that. So if I was to click on CALS, there's each college has this rubric. First of all, thesis prep, required courses, finding a thesis advisor, timing, and study abroad considerations. So this is for CALS, specific to CALS. So it tells you that you have to take CALS 196 in the spring of your junior year, that you must take a minimum of 1 additional credit in research-related coursework. This required coursework varies by major. Now you'll notice that this is starting to look kind of customizable. And in every college, there is definitely a customizable feature, characteristic to what you're doing in junior year, because it's customized to how you are understanding your thesis, what you want to do for your thesis, and who your people are. Your thesis proposal, something you're probably going to do in junior year. So each college also has something under this rubric for thesis proposal, materials required, proposal timeline, and deadlines. When you have questions about thesis proposals, about deadlines, you don't come to us. You go to the folks in your college who are in charge of advising you on the requirements of your college. And you can, if you forget that, or you're just like, I'm panicking, I just emailed Lisa or, Britt or somebody, we won't be mad at you, but we'll say you need to contact so-and-so. Now, down at the bottom, you'll see who those folks are. So here we go, notes, web resources, and thesis contact. And thesis contact really is the person, in this case, in CALS, who is the liaison to the Honors College in CALS. Will answer most of your questions in CALS about your junior year and your senior year. And that person, as many of you know Doug, is Doug Johnson. Doug for the fall. In fact, Doug's going to be on sabbatical, just like I will be in January. Not that we're counting the days or anything, and not that we're doing sabbatical together. It just is just a coincidence that Doug and I are heading off at the same time. But so somebody else will be your liaison in CALS in the spring, and we'll make sure you know who that is when we have that name for you. So, and it will always be updated here. We're very good about updating this site. So everything that you need to know, kind of in short form, is on this site under every college. And if you click under, whatever college, you're going to get all the stuff in their rubric as well. So they're all set up exactly the same. Same headings all the way down. So this is a really good friend to you. I know that a lot of you you're like, I don't go to the Honors College website. I've never needed to go to the Honors College website. And you probably haven't necessarily until now, except maybe to look at the sophomore course descriptions. But this is going to be, just bookmark it. I mean, I think this is going to be really helpful to you. So there's information on the website that gets at just these things. So this is a really important part of your sort of things that are in your resource bag. Let's see. So the other thing, if I go back to the main page for Honors College, so if you think in terms of who's on your sort of board of advisors in junior year, you've got your Honors College liaison in your college. Then you're going to have people in the Honors College, but probably not necessarily the people that you've been seeing. So the folks in the Honors College will become incredibly important to you actually through junior year and perhaps through senior year as well. And not for everybody, but for many of you, will be folks in that part of the office that we now call the hive, the advising hive. And those and that's on the other side of the kitchen, just when you come in the door on the north side of the building, south side of the building. No, north. It is the north side of the building. The Office of Undergraduate Research and the Office of National Fellowships. So undergraduate research is Anne Kroll-Lerner. Many of you know Anne. And there's now somebody else working in that office full-time, Lily Fedorko. Many of you know Lily. She actually just graduated from UVM in the spring, but we hired her full-time into that job. She's been working with Anne for a couple of years as a student employee, and now she's a bona fide full-time staff member at UVM. And so she's the research coordinator in that office, and Anne still does a lot of advising as well, but Lily does a lot of advising around undergraduate research, mainly in the hub, but also in her office, which is Anne's old office, where Anne used to be. Anne is now next door in that space. We opened up that space. There used to be an apartment there, and we renovated, and now it's all office space. So Anne and Lily, really important if you're looking for undergraduate research opportunities. And in junior year, if research is something that you think you should be doing, if you're in any of the STEM disciplines, if you're thinking of doing field research, if you're wanting to be in a lab, or if you want to get involved in research in the social sciences and the humanities, and there are many opportunities for that. Junior year is absolutely when you need to be doing that, because that's going to set you up for your thesis. If you're in research, if you're in any kind of research field, that's going to set you up for your thesis. And you got to get going now, because it's kind of too late to get that going in senior year, because you won't have done everything you need to do in that lab to have a project of your own. The thesis is going to be your own project in that lab space if you're in the STEM disciplines. And so you want to get going now. So if you feel like, oh, geez, I don't have a clue about that, that's okay. It's not too late at all. This is a good time to be doing it. But you need to go see Lily or Anne right away, like in the next 2 weeks, and get some of that going. Same thing if you're interested in humanities or social sciences research. Lily in particular is very good at advising in those fields. So go see Lily. She's in the hub a lot for many hours during the week, and she'll help you get set up. The other thing that they have in the Office of Undergraduate Research is money. So if you need money to do your research, then you can apply for money through Anne's office as well. She's got all kinds of ways you can get your hands on money. Some of it is instantaneous almost through the $300 grants we call UROP, Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. Those are $300 grants specifically for thesis research, so that might be something, even now if you're sort of getting ready, but mostly for senior years when people are going to access that. And that's if you have expenses associated with research for your thesis and it's $300 or less. You apply for those. They're on a rolling basis. You turn that in. Within a week, you find out. You've got the access to the money, and you're not out of pocket for things that you need for your thesis that are sort of beyond sort of regular stuff that you would need, like books or paper or, things that you've been paying for all along. But, a couple of years ago, we bought some binoculars for somebody who was doing something in Rubenstein with Alan Strong, who's a bird guide. And she needed binoculars to be able to do her work, and they're very expensive. And so she put in a proposal for binoculars. We actually own those binoculars, and that's the thing, like we don't give them to you forever. We bought that equipment. She used it for the entire year. They were de facto hers, and then she just sort of turned them back into Rubenstein actually when she was done, so that when next time somebody has a bird project and needs some binoculars, there they are. They've already been paid for by the Honors College. So stuff like that, but usually it has to do with research expenses. So you're in the lab, or maybe you need to travel. Lots of times people need to travel for research. Those funds are available for that. There's bigger research funds as well, 500, 1,000, 2,000 if you want a summer research internship kind of thing on campus. You want to work in the lab through the summer. Lots of people do if they're in a lab, work in the lab from after junior year. So the summer between junior and senior year, you're just continuing with your project into senior year. Then you would apply for summer research internships. And that can be in a lab, but that could also be something that you're doing for a humanities or a social sciences thesis. So if you're doing work that's on your thesis and you've got a project, you got a supervisor, you have a plan, then you can apply for, it's like an income that you have for the summer. So instead of having a summer job, you can work full time on your research in the summer. They're competitive, but there are a lot of them. So there's money there, and so you should never be out of pocket for research expenses. either through your faculty member or usually through the Office of Undergraduate Research, there's money there for you. Sheena is the director of the Office of National Fellowships. Now, once you get to junior year, there are many things that you might think of applying for through that office. And I would ask you to look, let's see, on the menu. There's the fellowships link, and there's the undergraduate research link. So you can click on those. There's a big fellowships page. Those are national competitions. UVM does pretty well in them. Here are the ones that you might apply for in junior year. The Beinecke, which is for students in the humanities who are going to do a PhD in humanities, who are doing really well, and who might have some financial need, who do have some financial need. That's a full graduate fellowship, wherever you go. It's huge. It's a ton of money. It'll finance your graduate education. In humanities, there aren't very many of those. The Goldwater, which is for students in the STEM disciplines. Not as much money, incredibly prestigious. If you have a Goldwater, you'll get into any graduate school in the country. If you have a Goldwater, you'll have graduate schools competing for you if you want. And the only way you get a Goldwater is if you're planning to do a PhD in one of STEM disciplines. So if you've done really, really well in the sciences, or engineering, or math, computer science, and you're planning to go to graduate school, you need to let Sheena know. I mean, she may be getting in touch with you already, but if you've done really well, and we're talking 3.9 and up, the Goldwater is extremely competitive, but we win 1 or 2 of them every year. But those are students who have very, very high GPAs. There's a Goldwater sitting in this room right now, in fact. And you can, you can apply for them at a sophomore year or at a junior year, even at a first year. Though, but now that you're juniors, it's good. It's a fertile year for stuff like the Goldwater. You've got enough on your record. You've got research experience. You've got, and if you are that person, if that profile fits you, then you want to go talk to Sheena. The other big one in junior year is the Truman. So the Truman is a public policy fellowship. Also opens tremendous doors, will pay for your graduate work, regardless of what you do. But it's for people who've done real work on kind of public service. It's the big public service, National Public Service Fellowship. And you apply at a junior year. It'll fund law school. Nothing funds law school. But the Truman, if you win a Truman, will fund law school. Or whatever, a master's degree or part of a PhD. But it's also a door opener. It's a very, very prestigious public service fellowship. You need to have lots of leadership experience, and that's not just as president of a club. You need to have done something, taken initiative, built something, done something major, either at UVM or outside of UVM. You need to have done well, but not as well as, say, like a Goldwater. Like if you have a 3.7, you can be considered for a Truman. You wouldn't even be in the ballpark in the Goldwater with a 3.7, as great as a 3.7 is. It won't get you in the ballpark for Goldwater, but it will for Truman, because Truman is actually less interested in you being a perfect student and more interested in you being a very solid student with great public service. If that sounds like you, then you should be talking to Sheena about the Truman. So there are things like that. Those are the big ones that sort of cover all the areas for junior year, but there are lots of travel fellowships as well. So a BORAN, which is a State Department fellowship that will fund some travel abroad to countries that are of interest to the U.S. in terms of national security. Things like that. If you wanted to study Arabic, if you wanted to study Chinese, in particular, those are really popular right now. We had somebody go to Kazakhstan last year on BORAN. We've had people in Morocco. If you have an interest in being in public service, especially in something like the State Department, where you want to do something that involves national security of any kind, and that could be working for Homeland Security, but that could be being a teacher. It's a very broad category. If that's something that you're thinking of doing, and you want to study abroad in a country of interest to U.S. national security interests, then you should talk to Sheena about the BORAN. Again, we win those every year. They're hard to win, but we win. So, so those are great opportunities. And so if those things sound like, I'm not necessarily going to talk to my friends about this, but I do think that maybe like I want to, sort of like I don't want to brag, but in my inside head, I'm like, I think that could be me. Go see Sheena. Go see her. So those two offices, undergraduate research and fellowships, should become important to you in junior year if those are things that you're interested in and that you feel like you have the right profile for. Less sort of the folks in our suite. You probably won't see us very much. If you're coming to see us, it's probably because you have some questions about the thesis that can't be answered, or junior year that can't really be answered by your home college or by the liaison in your home college. Maybe it's sort of a negative issue. That you don't really want to talk to that person about because you sort of want somebody outside of your college to kind of bounce some issues off of. We're always available for those conversations. And your main person, your main advisor in the Honors College for junior and senior year is the Associate Dean. So this year you know that we have a new Associate Dean in the Honors College. A lot of you know him because you've taken classes with him, and that's Ian Brimmer. So you're going to make an appointment. You'll email Ian if you have a question about sort of your Honors College status or any questions around your Honors College status. You'll email Ian and make an appointment with Ian, and he'll chat with you. And please do. I'm not discouraging that at all. It's just that many times, you'll email with a question, which is a fine thing to do, and we'll say, actually, this is a question for Doug, or this is a question for, the folks in arts and sciences, Amelia Wilcox, or, whomever. And that's, we'll often direct you that way. It's not because we don't want to talk to you. It's because, like, those actually are your people now. The main thing that you need to be thinking about in junior year is who are the faculty people on your board of advisors. So I've been talking about your advisors on your board of advisors. And those people are really important to you, and they have been important to you. I know your advisors have been important to you all along. And that's as it should be. Those folks were great. But once you get to be a junior, the people who should be most prominent in your orbit are your faculty mentors. Those people are going to take over in many ways for us in the Honors College. And they probably have been, for many of you, very important already. So you may, when I say who's on your board of advisors, I mean who are the people that orbit you, or that you want in your orbit, or that you orbit around. Sometimes that's more like that. But who are the people who are your people? And now that's got to be dominated by faculty. I talked to a student today who's a great student, starting senior year, was abroad for a semester in junior year, which many of you may be in the spring. How many of you are thinking of going abroad? Yeah, no big surprise there. So lots of people. So this person was abroad. And because the person was abroad in the spring, didn't write a thesis proposal in the spring, because you can write in arts and sciences your thesis proposal and turn it in the fall of your senior year. And now they're stuck because they didn't have enough going on with faculty before they left. And now they're back and they don't know who to work on a thesis with. They want to do a thesis, but there's nobody in their orbit who sort of they could ask that question of. Now, going abroad means that there's some urgency in doing that this semester, making sure that you have your people with you this semester. So who are your people? Have those conversations before you go abroad. But that you have to have them in junior year. Senior year, it's not too late to begin to have relationships with faculty, but it's too late to begin a relationship with faculty that's going to turn into a thesis relationship. This is your year where you have to cement those bonds. So by the end of junior year, you want to know who you're working on a thesis with, who your people are. You probably have several. You might have 2 or 3 or 4 people, but one of them is going to be your thesis advisor. And one of them, that person, you will have had that conversation with well before the end of junior year. one year we thought about doing a video, because juniors, this becomes kind of the thing in junior year, is when you're going to have that conversation. So we're going to do a video called, He Said Yes, which was, people going to ask their faculty person whether they would be their thesis advisor, which feels a lot like you're asking someone to marry you, or it can, but it's not quite like that. But you do have to have that. You probably do have to have that conversation, and that can be for some of you. That's just a very natural conversation. If you're working in a lab already, then of course what you're doing, and you're happy in that lab, then of course that's going to be where you do your thesis, and that's not a hard conversation to have at all. With the PI or the postdoc or the graduate student who's sort of working with you in the lab, it's assumed that you're going to stay there. You're going to have your nice little piece of a project. You've been in the lab long enough to have your own piece of the project, which is part of the PI's project, and it's not a difficult conversation to have at all. It's harder if you're not in the STEM disciplines, because there's a little more autonomy in terms of what your thesis is if you're not in the STEM disciplines. For one thing, you're not going to be just doing a piece of your advisor's work. You're going to probably doing your own project. It may have something to do, it should have something to do with what your supervisor is working on. But it's your own project. It's really your own project. You're writing it, from scratch. It becomes your own thing. So there are some real differences between the students who are working in the STEM disciplines and the students who are working in the non-STEM disciplines in terms of what it feels like to kind of get going on the thesis. So don't compare yourself to your non-STEM or your STEM friends. Your thesis can be your own thing, and the relationship you have with the professors will be its own thing in many ways based on your discipline. So those relationships, though, are not just important in terms of you need a yes from somebody to do that, and the sooner you do that, the better. But even after somebody has said yes to doing that work with you, you have to take care of that relationship. You can't just say, okay, I'm set, I'm going to go do my own thing, and sometime in senior year, I'm just going to kind of come back into this person's world, and we're going to be good. So that's the other thing that happens, is that if something is going to go wrong in senior year, if you've been through junior year, you've done what you needed to do, you've got a thesis proposal at the end of it, passes through the committee, whatever kind of proposal process, approval process there is in your college, and again, that differs from college to college. And you get into senior year, and you're like, I'll get to the thesis, and then I'll get to the thesis, and then we'll eventually get to the thesis. And you just haven't checked in with that person. You know that they signed on. Last time you talked to them was last April. Now it's November. Then it's early December. Then they have to put either satisfactory progress or unsatisfactory progress on your thesis credits. And they're like, I haven't seen Sophie since April. She hasn't emailed me. I haven't seen her. Sophie, you are a bad actor. I know you are. So I say I'm unsatisfactory progress. Sophie has not even contacted me, and it is up to you to do that. Your faculty person, if it's me, I'm going to be riding your case the whole way. But that's just me. You cannot count on somebody to ride your case if you're not getting in touch with them. It's up to you to do that. You need to take the initiative. It's your project. They're signing on to do work with you that they're not, in fact, even really compensated for. So it is your responsibility to take care of that relationship. If you don't, that's it. So I put an unsatisfactory progress on Sophie's grade report in December, right? I'm going to do that. And it's done. That's it. You can't undo the unsatisfactory progress. The unsatisfactory progress is unsatisfactory. You can't argue that. It's just you haven't been there. So that's it. Thesis over. And it won't happen. Even though Sophie, all this whole time, was toiling away in the library, has tons of notes, has an outline. I haven't seen her. It's a relationship. The thesis is a relationship. At the core of every thesis, whatever kind of thesis you do, is a relationship, and you better take care of that relationship, or it'll just go south. And every spring, I have that Kleenex box on the table in my office, and about half of it is gone through the month of April because of people saying, I can't, my supervisor won't let me defend the thesis. Right, they haven't seen you in 8 months. You have a thesis? Too bad. I haven't seen it. And as harsh as that sounds, I deal with that every spring with people who their thesis advisors like, I don't care if you have a thesis. I have not been a part of it. I have not been part of this process. And it is so much about process, especially the undergraduate thesis. As a graduate student, I could do that. I mean, I checked in with my person all the time, but honestly, if I'd gone away for 8 months and come back with the thesis, he would have been fine with that. Because at that point, I am autonomous. But the undergraduate thesis is an exercise. It's not this sort of mythologized thesis of graduate school. It is a process, it is an exercise, and it is supposed to be this back and forth with the supervisor the whole way. So you gotta set the tone for that relationship in junior year, whoever you ask. You gotta come up with a schedule. You gotta know that that person is gonna be reliable, responsible to you. But you're going to take the initiative, and you're going to make sure that once you get to be a senior, but even especially through the proposal writing process, you're going to be in touch with that person a lot. They are a big, huge part of the process. If you don't respect the process, they will pass you. And it happens every year, like more than one person. Like sometimes lots more than one person. And there's nothing I can do about it. Truly, there is nothing I can do about it. Like, it is 100% the faculty person's prerogative to make that call. I have not been involved in the thesis. I am not going to call the faculty person and plead your case. I have not been a part of it. You will come. You will use the Kleenex on the table in my office. We'll talk about how you can come back from this kind of failure. But I can't make it better. I can use my wisdom to say you'll get over it, but that's all I can do. No magic wand. But it's easy. It's easy. It's easy. It's just about taking care of the relationship. It is not rocket science. All right, so the other thing is, and it's important that I do this, is that I kind of demystify the thesis for you a little bit. So, here's the problem, and the problem is this. Everybody that you're going to work with, every single person who's qualified to work on you with your thesis is somebody who has a terminal degree. So it's somebody like me who did a PhD. Okay, that's some kind of labor in terms of a dissertation. That's a book. I better know what I'm doing when I'm doing a dissertation. I better really, really, really care about it. I better care enough about it that it's going to kind of be the rest of my life. That's a big thing, right? That's a big thing. And everybody you're working with has done that. You're writing an undergraduate thesis. It's an exercise. As much as anything, it's an exercise in life. It is a great, great, great project to do to sort of teach you what it's like to come up with a project and see it through. If you never go to graduate school, if you never go to college ever again, the thesis is a great thing because of what it teaches you about life. The undergraduate thesis. The graduate thesis it's like against life. It's like you don't have a life at all while you're writing a dissertation. Most people don't. That's at your peril. Go for that. I'm not trying to dissuade you from graduate school, but you got to know what you're getting into. The undergraduate thesis isn't like that at all. It's not like that at all. It's a wonderful process where you get to kind of rehearse what it's like to do your own thing with somebody that you like working with. It's a 40-page paper if you're in the humanities or social sciences. It's a scientific paper if you're in the lab. It's not a book. It's not the thing that's going to determine the rest of your life. It's not something you have to be absolutely, totally head over heels in love with. It has to be something that you're willing to put 6 credits worth of work into. That's 2 courses worth of work. It has to be good. You have to care about it, but it doesn't have to be the thing that you care most about in the whole entire world. If the person that you most want to work with is going on sabbatical and you can't do the thesis on whatever, the beat generation, because that person's going on sabbatical, so what? It's an undergraduate thesis. Do the thesis with the person that you want to work with. Talk to that person about what it could be. It's an exercise. You're supposed to be learning from it. You're supposed to be building skills with it. You're not supposed to already know how to do all that stuff. So treat it like that. Don't turn it into this thing that it's not. It's a big, important thing for you. I'm not trying to diminish the importance of it. It's important. But it's not like a graduate thesis. Now, part of the problem is that your supervisor, your faculty supervisor, might be bringing some of the PTSD of their dissertation to the thesis process with you. And so you need to just take some things with a little bit of a grain of salt. If you're working hard on it, you're meeting with them regularly, you're turning in work, it will shape up into a very nice thing. And if every once in a while you need a little bit of a reality check, come and talk to me or Ian, and we'll give you a little reality check and you'll be fine. But it's not something to be afraid of. It's not something to psych you out. It's a great exercise. It is a great exercise. And it's something that you'll be very proud of. Even if it's not like the best thing in the whole world. You'll be really, really proud of the process that you went through to get to a final product. The product should be good. Great? Not necessarily. The process, though, should be great. Like you should feel like you got a lot out of the process. So put it in perspective in that way. I mean, it's not 100 pages. People are like, I have to write 100 pages. No, 60 minus 60, like 40. That's 4 10-page papers. That's not that bad. And if you do want to go to grad school, it's a great rehearsal. It's a great rehearsal. So you'll go to grad school, you'll add all the angst to it in graduate school, but as an undergrad, like it's still a great rehearsal for graduate school, it really is. But it shouldn't be a really angsty thing. If you're on it starting in junior year, then you're good. Don't put the pressure on you in junior year. You got to find the absolutely perfect thing to do your thesis on. Work with the person you want to work with. That's my rule. Work with the person you want to work with. Somebody you know is reliable, good egg, will sit down and talk with you, will always meet, will not show up. Somebody who answers your emails. Somebody who shows up when they say they're going to show up. A good egg. Somebody you can trust. Who you like to talk to. Doesn't have to be your best friend. Doesn't need to be somebody you want to go for coffee with, but somebody who's interested in your ideas. Somebody you can have that conversation with. But don't get stuck on like the perfect thing, because if you get stuck on the perfect thing that you want to do, it's just going to be one big disappointment after another. It's just, don't set yourself up for that. That's not what it is. That's not what it's meant to be. I would like it if everybody did the thesis in the senior year. We lose a lot of people, right? About 58% of the people that we have in sophomore year, at the beginning of sophomore year in the Honors College, become Honors College scholars. 58%. That's not very many. And it's in many cases, it's because, well, there's various reasons, like the reason that I was talking to the person this morning about in my office, which was they don't have a relationship with a faculty person that they can now call on. And I can't, again, like that's just, there's no shortcut to that. Like, you gotta do it now. Like, that's what junior year's about. Like, build those relationships. Because if you come into my office at the beginning of senior year, like the person did this morning, I can't fix it. Again, like, I can't fix it. It's like, what can I say? You either have these relationships or you don't. If you don't, no matter how good your idea is, you're not gonna be able to do the thesis. So we lose people to that.
But we also lose people because they psych themselves out. Like they really, like they're so certain that, it needs to be this thing, and they psych themselves out. And they get really disappointed when they can't find somebody who wants to do this exact thing. I'm like, that's for graduate school. When you go to graduate school, when you decide where you're going to graduate school, you don't like go and look at the campus. You don't go and see what the housing looks like. You go to the web and you find out who's working in that department that does exactly what you want to do. That's how you choose graduate school. But you didn't choose UVM that way. You're undergraduates. And that's not really why you're here, to like have the perfect thing that with the perfect person. It will be great what you do. It should be a great experience. When you go to graduate school, if that's what you do, you find the person who can supervise exactly the thesis you want to do. Because that's the rest of your life. Now, then it is the rest of your life. Or at least part of the rest of your life. And that should matter. But that's not what this is. All right? So that's my pep talk about the thesis. Don't psych yourself out about it. And Sophie, make sure you talk to your faculty person, okay? Okay, questions about anything that I've said before I dismiss some of you to chat with the arts and sciences folks, because that's the biggest group of you. Yeah, I'm happy to answer questions from folks in other colleges. Yeah, Jamie.
I am not in another college, but this is a general question.
Good.
It's 4 people in your orbit?
However, 4's good, 3's good, 3's fine. Should be 3, at least, because on your thesis committee, there needs to be 3 people. Your advisor, another person in your department who's your second reader, and then somebody from outside of your department who comes on as the chair of your committee. Now, that might be somebody you actually don't know, but that your advisor knows. But yeah, I think 3 or 4 people. If you have more, great, but 3 or 4, yeah. Ula.
So, for instance, I have had a different advisor every semester because mine keep leaving, so I have no relationship.
That's an academic advisor. That's not a faculty advisor.
Okay,
so when I say advisor, thank you for that. When I say advisor, I mean the person who advises your thesis, who's totally different from your, might be the same person, but that would just be coincidental as your academic advisor. So you choose the faculty person who's going to be your thesis supervisor. I'll call it that. They don't have to be in your college, but you need somebody in your college to sign off on it. So here's what happens. People are in the College of Arts and Sciences. They're in, I don't think this is you, Ula, but frequently comes up with the STEM disciplines. So students in biology, in the life sciences, in CALS or arts and sciences, been working in a lab in the College of Medicine. Those people aren't on undergraduate faculty. They're at UVM, but they're in the College of Medicine. If you want to do your thesis in arts and sciences, you can continue working in the lab with that person in College of Medicine, and that person will be your PI and will sign off on all your work. But you need somebody in the biology department who will also sign off on it, because you have to have somebody in arts and sciences who's the co-supervisor. That person might not see your work until it's done. You've really just worked with the person in comm. But you have to have somebody in biology in your college who will sign off on it. That's called a co-supervisor, and so you need to have a co-supervisor. Just somebody you know in your department who's like, yeah, I'll be a part of this. I'll sort of, it's like co-signing a loan. It's kind of exactly the same thing. It's not a loan, but it's sort of the same thing. Is that, yeah? Okay.
Does everyone, like who's either your faculty advisor or somebody else who's like a co-signer, do they all have to have PhDs, or like could they be?
Depends on your college, Sonia. I mean, it's like, I think that in the College of Arts and Sciences, yes. But if you have somebody who's a lecturer who's not, and it's not about what degree they have, it's about what appointment they have at UVM. So in arts and sciences, for instance, in some other colleges, the person needs to be in the rank of professor. So assistant, associate, or full professor. But if you have somebody who's a lecturer, and many colleges do, Rubenstein does, for instance, have a lot of great lecturers who are involved in thesis projects. Rubenstein's actually okay with that. In arts and sciences, you have to have a co-signer who's in the professoriate. But you can work like almost completely with the lecturer. those questions you want to ask of the folks in your college to be sure, because they might have their own thing. But I've never known anybody who couldn't work with the person that they wanted to work with if that person agreed to do it, except that they might have needed like a co-supervisor on it. The only person that you really can't work with, on a thesis, is somebody who does not have an appointment at UVM at all. So sometimes people will have like a community partner that they've been doing stuff with, public service-wise or whatever, and that person cannot supervise your thesis. They can't be involved in it at all. They could come to your defense, but they're not faculty. So they have to be a faculty member at UVM. Yeah, Suma.
So your academic advisor doesn't have to be involved whatsoever?
Not at all. No, not at all. That person can continue to be what they've been to you, but they don't need to be involved in your thesis at all. No, and I think it's the language that gets confusing, because I've been using this word advisor, but I don't mean your academic advisor, the person who's on your transcript as being your academic advisor. I don't mean that. Yeah, Lucy.
You might have answered this earlier, sorry, but is it possible to do a thesis in a subject that's not related to your major? Or is that...
Yes, but you have to show some expertise in it.
Yeah.
So there's no rule, I don't think, in any college that you have to do the thesis in your major. And the thesis is often an occasion for you to combine interests that you've been, but you have to have developed the expertise. So you can't, as an English professor, I used to have students all the time. I'm not a creative writer in this particular way, but students would frequently ask me, I'm in econ, but I write poetry all the time, and I want to do creative writing thesis. This is when I was working as the liaison in arts and sciences. And I would say, I'd look at their transcript, and I'm like, there's not a single creative writing class on your transcript. You haven't, you might be great, you might be the next Walt Whitman, but you don't have any expertise that is measurable. So no, and the committee will turn you down. But if you can show expertise, then sure.
Not in your college?
And again, co-advised. That's the College of Medicine example.
So
You have to have somebody in your college who signs off.
okay.
Yeah.
So relating to the expertise thing, if we want to do our thesis on something that UVM doesn't have a class specifically on, but maybe that brings together things from a few classes that we have taken, would that work?
Sure. As long as you can make a case for that, and as long as you have an advisor, a supervisor, a thesis, a faculty supervisor who can help you make that case, you bet. And a lot of students will do that. They'll this is an opportunity, having developed these expertises in these different fields, to now do this sort of interdisciplinary thing where they bring them together. And the thesis is a great opportunity to do that. So if you've been working in G-Swiss and anthropology, and you're like, I want to kind of bring G-Swiss and anthropology together and do this thing that uses stuff I've done, like my course on trans stuff and my course in anthropology, and I want to bring these things together. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are the best theses of all, because they really do allow you to kind of customize your capstone, and that's what it should be. Something fun like that, ideally. And if you've got a faculty person who's fine to go on that ride with you, then go for it. That's when the thesis is really fun. Challenging and fun. Anything else? Big general stuff? Okay, if you're not in arts and sciences, you can go. If you know everything you need to know about arts and sciences, you can go. But if you have arts and sciences questions, I'm happy to answer them. So come down. If you're gonna stay, come down into the first row. It's just easier. before the seniors show up. So this is the arts and sciences part of the evening. Ula.
What is HEC thing?
HEC is the honors enrichment contract. Okay, so this is your, in junior year in the College of Arts and Sciences. So here you're going to go to the Arts and Sciences website. Actually, if I go back to the Honors College and I look up, if I go back up here to junior senior curriculum and I go to Arts and Sciences, it's all outlined here, great outline. Tells you that in junior year, in either the fall or the spring, you have to enroll, you must enroll in one of the following HECs, Honors Enrichment Courses. Contract. So it's a contract that you're going to have with the faculty member. 196A, which is what we call the course contract, and 196B, which is like the lab or studio contract. So it goes like this. You're going to write a thesis. You're starting to kind of figure out what field that might be in. You think you know who you might want to work with. They're teaching a class this, if you're doing the course version of the HEC, they're teaching a class this semester, or they're teaching a class next semester, even better. It's next semester, but it doesn't matter when, either semester. And you take that, you're taking that class, and you talk to that professor about doing an honors enrichment contract. That means a mini independent study that's attached to that class. So it might be extra assignment that sort of takes you into an archive, or it might be a paper that you write for the course that is related but kind of starting to move in your own direction towards the sort of things you want to do in your thesis. You'll work that out. And there are lots of examples of what those are on the Arts and Sciences website. If you're in the STEM disciplines, you're probably going to do 3 credits in a lab. So you're already doing research in that lab. You're going to write a contract with the PI in that lab for 3 credits of work in that lab in a semester, and that's going to be your HEC. It's easier in some ways with the STEM disciplines because you're probably already doing the research. Harder if you're doing the course one, though it's fun. It should be related to something that you want to pursue with the thesis. Doesn't mean that it has to be exactly what your thesis is. It doesn't mean you have to do it with the person that you're going to work on your thesis with, but it should not just be simply like an add-on to a course that you're doing just to get the requirement out of the way. At this point, you're not doing things to get stuff out of the way. You've done that. Everything you do now is about, how you're creating purpose out of your education. And so your HEC should be something that contributes in some meaningful way to how you're thinking about the thesis or your prep for the thesis, which is why I would say do it if you're going to be here, do it in the spring, because you're just that much closer to knowing what that's going to be in the spring. So do it in the spring if you can. If you're going to be abroad, you got to do it this semester. If you're going to be abroad in the spring, because you can't do the HEC in the senior year, that's quite beside the point. So you got to do it this year. So you have to do it this semester or next. Also, you have to take HON 101, which is a 1-credit thesis preparation course. It's like an advising course for the thesis. You'll work on your proposal in that course. The point of that course is that at the end of it, and it's like 5 meetings over the semester. It's not a whole semester worth of class time. Mostly it's a whole semester worth of working on your thesis proposal with your faculty advisor. But Mike Asher, who teaches that course, will sort of lead you through, what to expect out of that, how to write the proposal, what to expect out of the thesis project, all that kind of stuff. And you have to do that course also, unless you're taking ENVS 201, or unless you're so far along with something like a proposal that you don't need to take that course, in which case your faculty advisor would write a waiver for you. And it's 1 credit, and you got to do it either semester. In the case of the HON course, 101, you want to take it in the spring if you're going to be here, because that is by far the best time to be writing your proposal. Like you're far enough on. And then you just turn the proposal in at the end of that course to the committee in Arts and Sciences that reads and reviews your proposals. And that's a committee. That's not somebody who's your committee. It's the college committee. It's an 8-page document that you turn in officially to that committee, and they will read it and give you some feedback. And but you'll have written the proposal over the course of the spring with the guidance of HON 101. So those are the things you need to do in junior year. You can do them either or both semesters. So you could do your HEC now and HON 101 next semester, or you can do them both in the spring, or you can do them both in the fall, whatever works best for you. What's your question?
I have a question about whether this is like pretty strict or not, because I already know what professor that I'm working with for the HEC.
Yeah.
But she's not teaching a class that I can add on a credit for.
Yeah, so that's up to arts and sciences to figure out if they want to do kind of a, like, you could do like a 3-credit independent study potentially with that person. Because the course gives it extra credit. I mean, the HEC is sort of worth 4 credits if you're doing the course option. So you can't just have a 1-credit HEC. It's got to be attached to 3 credits of something, or it needs to be 3 credits of its own. But you should talk to Amelia Wilcox. So the person you want to talk to in arts and sciences is in the dean's office. It's Amelia Wilcox, and she'll kick it up to the associate deans if she needs to answer a question like that. And they'll turn those kinds of questions around right away. But I won't rule on that. Like
yeah,
that.
well, I asked them already, and
They said no.
yeah.
Then that's what they said. That's what they said. So if I ran the zoo, I might have some other options, but they don't. That's their prerogative. So you can wait till the spring, or you can take the HEC with someone else, and do something that's still sort of what you want to be doing with another person. And you can still work with her on the thesis. Like, you're not contracting with your HEC professor to do the thesis. It's just the HEC. Yeah.
If we're doing the HON this fall, then do we have to do our thesis proposal by the end of this fall?
No, you'll write it, but there's no opportunity to turn it in until April. Yeah, Lauren.
If we're doing HEC this semester, when is the contract?
By the end of ad drop. A week from yesterday. Yeah.
Does the professor have to be in class?
That's a good question for Cass. So I think that there are some cases where the HEC professor has not been in CAS, but you should ask them. That's their call.
And what if doing field research abroad is a large part of your thesis plan? What do you think about doing 101 in the fall, something like that setup? Can you propose really early?
You can have your proposal done. If you're going abroad, you have 2 options. One is to finish the proposal at the end of the fall and just turn it in April. Well, it's just waiting. Or you can turn it in at the beginning of your senior year.
Or what if you're going abroad, like, to research for your thesis
In the summer, then you would probably you would want your proposal you would probably want it approved before you did that. So you would for sure turn it in the spring. And they turn it around in like 2 weeks. I think that if you turned it in, it is. Probably. You could call them and ask. I don't know if they send out something that says it's approved. I think they just collect them. But you could call them and ask. You could just send them an email and say, just wondering if I have to wait for it to be approved. But the thesis needs to be approved. I don't know about the HEC. Else. Oh no, Aileen.
Since it's your HON
Yeah, so a lot of times those students will waive it. But you can't waive it, your advisor needs to waive it. So they're on the CAS website, there's a form that you're about the waiver, and you can have your PI or your professor fill that out, and then it's waived. It's at the advisor has to sign off on it. They're not going to argue. If the advisor says, Aileen is totally good to go, she doesn't need HON 101, she's done proposals before, she doesn't need the course, that's that. Yeah. Your thesis advisor. Yeah, the thesis advisor. So it's somebody who knows your work. Yeah. It's not under Honors College, it's under Honors Arts and Sciences. So on the registrar's page it says Honors College, and then right under it it says Honors Arts and Sciences. Because it's not an HCOL course, it's an HON course. Okay, I know it's confusing, but it's there. It is there. Yeah. Principal investigator. That's like the person who runs the lab, the PhD who runs the lab, the head scientist. Yeah, we don't use PI in the humanities and social sciences for the most part, but the scientists know what that means. You good? I'm good. Ian, me, we're good for questions anytime. But also, your person in CAS is Millie Wilcox, and she'll be a great, like sort of point person for you. Even if she can't answer the question, she'll know who can. So she's going to be your person in the dean's office for the next couple of years. If you have questions about these kinds of requirements, you're going to talk to Amelia. All right? Okay, go forth and prosper. Yeah. I'm doing the senior meeting right now. I am. Okay. Signing off.